I want to have faith in humans. Give me something to believe in. For 40 years, I've walked the line between worlds and am well versed in death. But I want to have faith in humans. Give me something to believe in. Earth below me, sky above me, fire within me. Brought to you by UPRN Network. I'm Trish Moe, and this is The Missing Piece.
I don't know what that little glitch was. Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, June 13th, and we are broadcasting live on 105.3 New Orleans and United Public Radio Network. Thank you all for joining us. It has been a hot week. I also want to thank Carnation for sponsoring 1 hour of my show. And we're also thank everyone who wished me a happy birthday last week. I appreciate it very much. It was good. I just spent it with my kids. We actually went to see Doctor Strange and the Multiverse. So tonight, tomorrow, well, for about the next 3 days, it is the full June supermoon, the strawberry supermoon. Excited. You all know me and I follow the moon. I live by the moon phases, actually. So you can see that it rises tomorrow morning, actually. And a supermoon just means it's larger and brighter. It also, they get the names. Well, most people think supermoons get their name, or any of the moons get their names from just the farmers' almanacs, but they actually come from different native traditions, colonial and European sources. So that's interesting. That will be 3 days. They're usually 3 days before and 3 days after the energy is. It's also known as the honey moon. So that's exciting. I will get to it tonight. I have a special guest, Sophia Demas. Is that right? Just she is the award-winning author of The Divine Language of Coincidence: How Miracles Transformed My Life After I Began Paying Attention from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She is also the creator of Living a Fearless Life, 12-step workshop. 12 workshop program, designed to help society's most at-risk women increase their self-esteem. It was piloted in the Philadelphia prison system and implemented with groups of ex-trafficked and ex-homeless women and women in recovery. So I'm so honored that you agreed to be here, Sophia, especially on such short notice. So welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Yes. And so do you currently live in Philadelphia?
Yes.
Is that
yes,
are you originally from there?
No.
No.
I've kind of been all over the place. I was born in Detroit. Then we moved to Greece, where my parents are from. Spent a magical childhood there. And then moved to Portland, Oregon from Greece when I was 11. And then I moved to Philadelphia in 1984.
Okay. So you've been there a while. And tell us, so the main thing that actually kind of, I'm always intuitively led to my guests, but one of the biggest things I found really remarkable is that this writing a book and this path that you're currently on wasn't always, it was never actually in your plans, correct?
I never wanted to write a book.
which is kind of opposite. Most people or writers that I've talked to anyways, that's something they've always wanted. So what led to this entire spiritual journey and to your book, I guess? Tell us.
Well, I think I guess it started when I was 19, and I was going through these too existential angst, like every 19-year-old. And I couldn't come to a solution. And I was just so overpowered by these two issues. And within 4 months, I met a man and I had a dream. And as a result of these two events, I was cured. I was cured, and it struck me so hard. Like, how can that happen? And I felt transformed. I felt like I had become another person, and I had confidence, and I really started thinking, how did all these coincidences happen so that I can have, this clear and miracles just. And then you asked about the book. Actually, about 15 years ago, coincidentally, I was facing a world famous medium.
Oh, wow.
And I really had no desire to see a medium, but that's how it happened. And she told me I was going to write a book. And I said, absolutely not. I'm sorry, but I'm not writing a book. First of all, I have nothing to say, but I'm a people person, and I'm not going to sequester myself someplace and write a book. And I just went on, and she just sat there very serenely, and she said, word for word, Spirit says when she's ready, there are many spirits here to help her and many hands on earth. And that's how it came down. And what would happen is I would tell my friends about my miracles, and everybody would say, oh, these things only happen to you. And it kind of irked me because, I'm not special. Like, I'm not a saint or a guru or anything like that. And then it was in 2011 when I turned 60. I reconnected with a childhood friend, and I told her my latest miracle, and she goes, oh, Sophia, these things only happen to you. And something clicked. It was like, coincidences happen to everyone, but I've had an inordinate amount of miracles. And I meditated on it, and when I came to the key, that is when I just naturally wanted to share it with everyone, and I wrote the book.
And now, backing up a little bit, you said you happened to come upon him. How did the medium, I guess, how did she, where did you meet her? Where did she come into your life? You said that
Okay.
she.
Well, okay. I had no desire or reason to see a medium. So my friend, um, uh, her mother, who was also a friend of mine, had died under mysterious circumstances. So this world famous medium comes to New Jersey across the river and was headlining the body mind spirit convention. Your cat wants to
Well,
be part of this.
she does. That's interesting. She has never, she's never joined us, actually. Sorry.
So she said, will you come with me? And I said, sure, I'd love to. So she booked that session a month and a half before the convention.
Mhm.
And 3 days before, I'm just sitting here minding my own business, and I get this weird urge to see the medium. And I
Those
thought that I
darn
was trying to go,
mediums.
that's stupid. That's what, why would I? It wouldn't go away. So I thought, oh, what the hell? So I called her up, And I told her, I said, look, this is so bizarre. I know you're booked, but I just had to call and let you know that I have this urge. And she goes, funny, you should ask. She goes, I just had a cancellation, and the cancellation was directly after my friend's session because she was going to be there the whole weekend. And I said, well, look, I just have to tell you, I don't want to disturb my dead friends and family. And so I don't know why I'm coming, but I want you to know that. And she goes, well, first of all, she says, just because you're there doesn't mean they're going to be there. But it sounds like you're being invited. So I said to my husband, here's the deal. And he goes, what? He goes, you're going to spend $150 and you're not even going to ask to talk to somebody up there? I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I said, we go to the theater, we spent $150. It's the experience, okay? So that's all I want. So I went, and it was absolutely incredible what she told me and the way she told it to me. And lo and behold, it took me 8 years to write the book, but I wrote the book, and it's just been an incredible experience. And there were so many. I mean, to write a book, something I've never done before. I listed all the miracles and all the coincidences, and there were just way too many to cram into one book. So I plucked out all the ones that had to do with death, and that's my second book, and it's being published. I just went through the first edit, and the title of that book is Consciousness Beyond Death: True Stories of Signs, Messages, and Timing. And I'm so excited about it.
When will that one be coming out?
In the spring,
In the spring.
2023. In the spring. I mean, if people go to my website, which is just my name, sophiademas.com, and subscribe, they will be told, it'll be announced when the book comes out.
Updated. So throughout this, have you ever had, I guess, mediumship experiences yourself where you
No.
could communicate? Huh. I find that since
Oh,
you
you
have
mean
such a
communicate?
mhm.
Communicate with dead friends and family?
Mhm.
Oh, that's my 7 out of the 10 chapters of my next book is these communications.
Well,
But not
but I mean, did you recognize, I guess, in the beginning, a lot of I know with myself, over half my life, I didn't think that, I started recognizing these signs and symbols and stuff, but I never considered that it was coming from spirits. So was there a point, um, before or after you spoke with the medium that was very significant and like, oh, with most mediums and stuff, they it's either always been there their entire lives and where they recognized it, or there was a specific, standalone point that they were like, this is actually coming from someone on the other side.
um, see, I don't consider it mediumship. Maybe you can convince me otherwise. I had definite communication, like definite communication. Like I remember asking my father for a sign, and it was midnight. I was in bed, and the door from the bedroom to the hallway opened up, and the room was, I just felt this embrace, and it was as real as can be. So would you consider that having a medium? To me, it was just communicating.
Right. And I think for most of us, where that kind of becomes, well, I guess for me, it happened all the time. So I thought that it was something that everybody experienced, and it was, something normal. But in all these fields, there's, definitions, I guess, of different things, and a lot of people consider. I just heard an entire conference on this recently, where um, people consider psychics to be much different than mediums, obviously, and vice versa. And and then some people are both, and etc. But um, I'm sort of like you, I guess. I just consider it communication, but yeah,
Can
I
you give me an
would.
example? Can you give me an
Well, has it always been? Have you always had a specific, I guess, person in mind that you tried to communicate with, or were you just open to receiving messages from
no?
wherever in the universe?
Yeah. Seeking. It was just like just thinking about someone. I mean, and just really like, and then ending up talking to them, or sending, like a request or something, and then right away there would be a response. And
Oh,
I just thought, oh, this is so amazing. I mean, every time I just, whenever something like this happens, I just am in awe. I says, why do you always seem so surprised? You wrote the book. And I'm like, every time something like this happens, I'm just like, it's just amazing. Uh, so
well
I
then
just
yes,
find
I would
it
consider that
like a
mediumship.
gift. It's just, but I can't. It's not like there's some spirit guide, and like I'm going to tell my friend, oh, I'm having a conversation with your mother up there. I it's like a personal thing. It's just it's amazing. And so 7 of my 10 chapters are my experiences. 3 chapters are 3 friends' experiences. And I when I sit back and think, which one is weirder, I can't. Like one day I think, oh, it's Michelle's story. No, it's Mary's story. No, it's Kim's story. It's just amazing, because if I can experience this, that means you and everyone else can experience this. But I'll tell you, I'm going to spill the beans and give you my key. Okay. With all these miracles, things that come at the right time, exactly what I need at the right time. And I believe that the universe, okay, first of all, I believe that the universe wants us to succeed, all of us. Okay. Now, I don't understand why the universe gave us free will, but divine intelligence gave us free will. But there's a greater will. There's a divine will. And if I believe that the closer that we align with divine will, the path just opens up for us. The more we try to swim upstream, it's like, that's why, when people talk about manifestation, manifest, just write it in your journal, whatever you want. We don't know what's best for us, So I mean, I feel very strongly about this. Like if I want a red Ferrari, and I want this Ferrari really bad, and all these obstacles come in my way, Okay, I can't
Yeah.
get the loan. And then I go, damn it, I have free will. I'm getting this Ferrari. So I get the Ferrari and I crash and die. So maybe I should have listened to the
Yeah.
obstacles. So that's how I've been living my life.
And I think well, we almost 80 to 90% of the time, probably more than that, we create our own obstacles. Actually, we block whatever, due to who knows what past, childhood triggers, traumas, whatever we create. Um, and you see like the imposter syndrome and stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where, and I just learned a lot about this, where people, especially with who lack a lot of self-confidence and things like that, who don't think they're good enough or don't think their skills or whatever gifts or whatever, so they start self-sabotaging any type of, I'm the same way with you as far as like writing the book. People always tell me that, and I'm like, oh, nobody would anybody read it. Why would somebody want to read my book? All the things we tell ourselves to block that path. And then when you really stop and look back, you're like, wow, that was all my own doing. And if I would have just gotten out of my way, you know, and let the universe, like, let it happen the way it's supposed to. Um, because otherwise I know with myself, I kept repeating the same cycles over and over and over, until, and I'm sure my spirit guides in the universe and everything, they're probably looking at me like, oh my gosh, this girl, like, how many times do we, you know?
But see, you can get over that. And what for me, there's an inner voice. Okay, that's how things are communicated. And the more you listen and the more the outcome is positive, the more trust you have in it and the more you're willing to risk. Now, the key for me is taking action. And what you were describing was inaction.
Right.
Okay, so this is very important. Okay, it's so you see a coincidence. Okay, there's a coincidence. I'll tell you about just one coincidence that happened before our wedding. Okay, there are two amazing coincidences that yielded a huge gift. Each one yielded a huge gift. Okay, so one coincidence was I dial my friend Anne, and a man answers that's not her husband. And I'm like, hello, is Anne there? No. And the person says, Sophia, is that you? And I said, yes. I said, this is Jerry. You called me. And I'm like, Jerry? And it turns out that this guy I've known socially, somehow he recognizes my voice, which I couldn't believe. And he says, look, I'm on my way to a meeting. I just got out of the shower. I have to run. Can I call you later? Okay, now, at this juncture, I could have said, oh, no, it's a wrong number, right? I said, Jerry, what's your telephone number? And he gives me his number, and the last digit was off. Now, what is the odd the number? And it in all of Philadelphia, and I would actually get a wrong number and get somebody I know on the other end. So I said, look, you have to call me, promise me. Now, this is where I'm taking action, okay? Promise me you're going to call me, because this is too wild for me. He goes, okay, I promise. So he calls me, and it turns out that this guy, for like a period of 3 or 4 years, owned the Barclay Hotel on Rittenhouse Square, this amazing old world charm hotel. And he gives us the ballroom for free.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me? Sophia? I don't know if I froze or she froze. Are you there? Well, let me see if I can get her back real quick. It looks like her screen froze there for a minute, so we will wait until she pops back in. I find this is fascinating. I'm going to ask her to let's see. It says device is not connected. Let's see. Sophia, if you can hear me, you have to reconnect. It says your mic and cam are not connected. So it won't let me add you to this. Oh, there we go. Can you hear me?
Hi. Did we just lose each other?
Well, your screen froze, so which is interesting. So here's so before you finish that story, because I do want to hear because I consider there's always I always tell people everything means something. And so right when you're about to tell that story, which we didn't hear most of it for the your screen froze. There were sirens in the background of my house. So I was thinking, and I, I'm a medium, and I was thinking at that time something's trying to come through. A lot, especially with sirens, that if something energetically is trying to get our attention, I guess it might interrupt. There's always reasons for things like this, especially on these shows. But I always find it interesting, the different synchronicities when those things happen. So I want to hear your story now and see how that coincides with what just happened, I guess, because
So,
there was a pause.
well, we decided to get married on 4th of July, and the wedding was going to be 4th of October. So that's only 3 months, and we couldn't find a venue. So magically, we have this absolutely gorgeous room for free, and he threw in the presidential suite for 2 nights.
Oh, wow.
And it was amazing. Now here the juncture. So I think I was right there in the juncture. When he said, "Look, I'll call you later," I could have said very easily, "Oh, you don't have to. This is a coincidence." But by making him promise, taking that action. So how many coincidences can we just say, oh no, don't bother, but it sure is weird. But when you take action, when you call up that person, you go to that place, you look up you open the book and you read, even if you don't want to read what you're reading because it's making you uncomfortable, you read it. It's these things that once you take action, then you may have a miracle. So now this one was just a light one, and the other one is also very weird. And I always ask people, well, which one do you think is weirder? 50% say one, 50% say another. But both happened because I took action. And I this is what I hope to parlay to people, that, I'm not special, but all these amazing things happened. And the book it's a memoir, so it's pretty chronological, except for 2 chapters. Okay, one is entitled Please, which is on prayer, and the other one is Thank You, which is on gratitude. And the miracles in those 2 chapters are more thematic. But you don't have to do anything special. You ask, and then when you get it, you say thank you. That's it. You don't have to put a lot of work into it.
I think because I was used to do the same thing. I think a lot of people have an expectation of how they're going to receive the answer or the whatever they've asked for. So I think it restricts your ability to receive when you have a specific outcome in mind, and that people go into um, law of attraction and manifestation, everything with that. But I think it's as
Well,
simple as just say, okay, I need this much money for whatever, or I need this but without an expectation of how you're going to get it. Because I
okay,
know
that is extremely important, what you just said. Um, because instead, I have gotten to the point.
Uh-oh. We lose her again. Can you hear me? I think we may have lost you again. So, an interesting thing. Let's see if we can get Sophia back here. So I'm gonna ask her when we get her back, because during that time, I don't know if you all could see it too. I'll have to review the video afterwards, but I was getting oh, let me remove the other one. Add this one.
Sorry, I don't know, because my internet is full bars.
Spirits. I'm telling you, it happens all the time. So, which is what I was going to say. So, when you were speaking before, right after the first time, we got disconnected, I saw like a man trying to channel through you. I don't know. Now, I don't know if we go back and review, the recording of this, you might be able to see like that come on the screen, because I could, but I never know if other people can see those things or not. Sometimes through I don't know. Sometimes I'm the only one, and but that was interesting. So I'm wondering who is trying to give the world a message, or me, or whoever, through you, because it was definitely a male presence. Every time you try to speak, every time, um, and so I'm wondering where that's coming from.
Oh God, I have no idea. I mean, I really have no idea. I mean, but this medium thing, there's another story that's in the next book that is wild, that brought me to a message, and the message was from my father. But
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say it felt like a father figure and a male, and something significant to you and a father figure. So,
but he already told me what he wanted to say.
are you sure?
I don't know. Maybe he wants to. I have no idea. I find that fascinating.
And that's what I was, which is important, is against what we were just talking about. Usually I spit it out right away when I see that, and I was thinking, I feel like her father's trying to say something, but I don't want to interrupt and I don't want to get disconnected. But see, there you go. That's the whole taking action part. And I'm learning that as a medium myself, when it comes to, especially with like missing people and cold cases and things like that I've been dealing with a lot lately, because I used to get all these messages and all these symbols and signs and everything else, and I would never say anything because I'm like, no, I'm just, I'm imagining things, I'm making things up. Um, and then soon after, oh, see, I just saw him again.
Huh?
Uh,
Wow. Wow.
um, but yeah, so that's part of trusting, and I guess the message we have to deliver. So, and maybe that's part of, you know, you spoke of, you see all of these miracles and messages and things corresponding in your own life, but maybe that has something to do with it. Tell us about the prison, living a fearless life, that program. Maybe it has something to do with that.
Okay, now wait. You know what? The bars are going. So I'm going to move to the room where the Wi-Fi is, and hopefully we'll have maybe a better connection, because I feel like I'm the scoundrel that's causing all this. Okay, so.
Ooh. I feel like you have a lot of spirits around you, or maybe in your house. I mean, that's not a bad thing. I have a lot of spirits around me. I mean, all the time. So.
So wait, oh yes, this is something what you were saying. I see we're on all these tangents, but you were saying about asking for things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how it started out. But now I just ask for what is best. I'm not specific. Twice, once after my mother died, and once after Frank's mother died, my husband, we needed a certain amount of money that came to us almost both times within a couple of $100. I didn't ask for that. It was a wish. It was a desire. I never asked for it. And so I've learned that you don't have to ask, oh, I need this amount of money. To me, it's like, you just go, help me out, do whatever's best. That is the best prayer, so, and that, if you can pray like that, just God, whatever's best, then it alleviates expectation, because you're not praying for something specific. So you don't have that expectation, and it will come to you. And then faith builds. Okay, faith builds. So what the way I've described it in the book is, there's like 3 levels of faith. Okay, the first level is wishful thinking. It's wishful thinking. So it's like, oh, I wish I had this. I wish I had that. But you don't take action, but you just keep wishing and nothing happens. Okay. Then the next level is hope. You're not wishing anymore. You're hoping. So when you see a coincidence, you go, oh, what a coincidence. I'm going to take action and hope that I get what's best for me. But then the third, now I've gone there, but I'm human, so I can't, I'm not there 100% of the time, but it's like faith, and it's you're in a state of faith. So it's like, okay, whatever happens, it's for the best, and you deal with whatever happens, and then you never worry about anything. Because even if it's an obstacle, it's for your own good. And the more faith you have, the more your inner voice is trusting. And it's just, you're always happy.
I agree. I 100% agree. In my own life, That's what I was admiring about you earlier when you were talking about, people used to say, well, miracles, why do all of these things happen to you all the time? People say that to me. I mean, good and bad. There's crazy off the wall things that have happened in my life. And sometimes even the bad things, once I changed my perspective of those bad things, maybe I didn't get a specific job that I wanted or that I thought I wanted or whatever. Um, but then a better offer came in or something that better suited my life. And had I gotten the one I wanted, it wouldn't have allowed me to have other opportunities. And so once I started changing my perspective, and relating all of these things that happened, in different series in my life, and start telling other people about these things, and they're like, oh, and I think that's what is so profound about being able to share our stories, because it enables other people to relate in a way in their own life that might spark it could absolutely change their entire outlook on life, their entire direction, and help them get over that blockage.
Are you familiar with the book A Course in Miracles?
I'm not. It
Okay,
sounds familiar. Who's
it's
the
there's no author. See, it's a little it's spiritual, but it was channeled. The whole book was channeled. It's very interesting. And I relate in the book how that came into my life and how it affected my life and changed my perception. But I mention it because the name of the book is A Course in Miracles. And I have to tell you, that book slapped me in the face for over 2 years before I actually read it. It was a situation where I was actually forced to read it. But there's one definition only of a miracle in that book, and it's a change of perception for the better. So when you can change your mind, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm not for capital punishment anymore. It's a miracle. It's considered a miracle. So yes, and it's an evolution. You were describing your life as sort of an evolution.
Yes, very much so. And the same thing. I people ask me my stance on certain beliefs and such, and I tell everyone all the time that my beliefs change every single day. I the older I get, the more I realize I know absolutely nothing to be 100% true in this world, because which is good, because when you stop learning, you stop growing. So, but it has taken so much, I just turned 41 this week, and it's taken, and
Oh,
I'm still, I
happy
don't,
birthday.
thank you. But I feel like the older I get, the more humbled I am by that, because I'm like, wow, it's like you start seeing the world almost in a childlike manner again, where
Yes.
everything is so new and so much more meaningful, and so that's why I love talking to people like you, because it is very personal to me. It's not just for the show or whatever. It's very inspiring. It's very um everything everyone I talk to and everyone I meet and network through teaches me something on how to maybe change that perspective in my own life, or apply to my own ways and such. And so that's incredibly helpful. And that's why it's important to hear people's stories, and everyone has a voice, I think oh, the consciousness beyond death. Now that was an interesting, that's what I was going to ask. Um how do you there's so many different opinions on consciousness beyond death. So what is your I guess, perception of that and the way that others, beyond the grave can communicate with you?
Well, first of all, consciousness. I end the book with I had an out of body experience during a guided meditation. My friend's mother, who I consider to be an ascended master, invited me to join them in a meditation. And um, I was just so thrilled and honored. And I was so open. And she did the chakras, and she did 5 instead of 7. And when it got to the heart chakra, I had this really strange sensation of like this energy cutting through my heart. And then when it got to the third eye, that remained. And I'm thinking, this is so bizarre. Another sort of circuitous energy was going, horizontal, vertical, like whoop, whoop, while this was going. And then she brought us to the crown of the head, and it was always the gardens, and the colors coincided with the chakras. So finally, we get to this crystalline garden. We're entering a crystalline garden. And the minute I enter this crystalline garden, I'm floating. The sensations stopped. Like, that was the most dramatic part. And I'm floating in light. And my first thought is, oh my God, I don't have a body. And I'm like, I'm one with the light. And then something kind of tells me, this is where you came from, and this is where you're going to go. And so for me, this experience, together with the communications, I am 150% certain that when you die, you simply shed your body. You are as aware as you are this very minute. No doubt in my mind. And my experiences, this is why I had to write the book, because it's just proof. And it's so amusing to me that there's all these scientists that devote their lives to try to prove consciousness. I mean,
Right.
how funny is that? Like, why are you going through all these motions when it's clear as a bell, and it has to be reproducible in the laboratory,
to some, those of us in these areas of interest think it's clear as a bell. But do you remember, was there ever a time, well, for example, before you met with that medium, you thought the same thing? Why would I ever meet with a medium? Why would I, So it's kind of the same thing, Be, and I tell people that all the time. I realize, and I'm very aware that I've had, I've had, gosh, like 4 or 5 near-death experiences. I've had things happen to me that have caused these traumatic awakenings and such, but not everybody um, has had that, or even has been in situations like yourself, that where they would be open to aligning their chakras and dealing with, you know, doing their shadow work and things like that. So there's probably, I always think that with even with in the paranormal field, with ghost hunters and things like that, which I 100% respect. But to me, I'm like, well, they're all around us. Don't they see them and talk to them? No, because it's so normal to me that I don't seek evidence. So it just comes to me all the time. I could turn my camera, cell phone, whatever, and I always get these spirits that show up and stuff all the time. Whereas there's people that are out there looking for it every day that might only get evidence once in a great while. And they're like, and
Do
it's
you
so
actually
obvious
see
to me.
them?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. So it's so obvious to me, but to everybody, but
right.
that's the same concept. Um, there's always this it seems to be this spark that people know they're searching for something, that there's something greater out there, but they need proof of its existence. And I think that whole concept is kind of like a watched pot never boils, because it's when you stop searching for it that it comes to you.
Well, and like I said, when it comes and you're grateful for it,
Mhm.
and then you trust, and then you get more and more and more. Now, one experience is my relationship with my husband. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you about it because it again, I have a very strong will. Okay, so I didn't want to get married. Actually, I didn't want to write a book. I didn't want to get married, and I didn't want kids. I was focusing on my work, but the universe has other plans. Okay, so I marry this, low key guy. Turns out he's a rager. I mean, major rager. He would sabotage romantic getaways. Finally, I went bye bye because I could. And we had some contact, and then something happened. I don't think it was even that big because I don't remember what it was, but I decided I never wanted to see this guy again. Okay, now, again, the universe not only wants us to succeed, but it wants unity. Okay.
Right.
Okay. My ego was so strong. I didn't want unity. I wanted separation. Okay. And I mean, I never wanted to see this guy again. Well, in the course of 2 months, we were apart a total of 6 months. Within 2 months, it wasn't even 2 months, 3 amazing coincidences happened. The first one had to do with A Course in Miracles. The second one had to do with his wedding band. And the third one had to do with this unbelievable coincidence that we were going to Maui for my best friend's wedding, where I was the maid of honor once again, third time. And as a result of this huge coincidence, we had these energy readings. That was in 2009. Frank has never had another episode since then. I mean, I am married to my dream companion. Now,
Wow.
how does that work? How does that work? I have made the decision. He's out of the picture. Out of the picture. Never want to see this guy again. But what happened? What the universe put in front of us is, and a lot of people say that is one of the most interesting part of the book because it's just so miraculous. I am sublimely happy, and I just walk around saying thank you all the time. How did that happen? But I allowed it.
So did he have, you said, an energy reading? Was it by an energy healer
Yes,
or
a
just
kinesiologist.
okay.
Yes, her name is Deborah Green, and she's moving now to Panama, but the way it happened, it's just unbelievable. So she's it's amazing. The readings are pretty amazing, and she can do it long distance as well. But to have that kind of and Frank he's completely changed. He's spiritual. At that time, the word miracle was strange to come out of his mouth, So I went in first for my reading, and then he went in, and when he came out, I said, "So how was it?" And he said, "There's something to this." I'm like, "What?" And he didn't want to talk about it, but 3 days later, he told me what he went through. And for him to be that open, I mean, and so I have this, he's not the man I married.
And that's interesting because going back to how now to like yourself and me, these things are obvious, but this is why, um and it happens a lot. I don't know. I've often wondered that if we're supposed to be with certain people, because so many women I know who, I don't know if women reach certain spiritual awareness sooner or what happens, but it seems like a lot of women I know, myself included, that have all these relationship problems and such, and their partners aren't spiritual, and their partners have, you know, maybe like the rage or the trigger problems or whatever. Um, and every one of them says the same thing. Well, no, he just makes fun of my spiritual practices, or he doesn't believe in them, or he, just thinks that everything we do is goofy and off the wall and whatever. So there is something to that. Um, but on the other hand, I've in through this network, obviously, there's tons of men. I'm not saying all men, but I'm saying we tend to attract on both sides people that, it seems needs some sort of healing or something. You hear about these transformations, and I think it's fascinating. Um, Because otherwise you two wouldn't be together, if you had completely sworn him off and out of your life, correct?
Yes, and what the Course in Miracles says is that because you know um, the universe wants connection, wants unity, it takes only one person of the couple to make it happen. So in this case, where I always saw myself as the one that wanted to make it happen, to come together, I was the one that didn't want it to happen. And he wanted it that badly. And I believe that, especially what happened with his wedding band, I mean, that was his reward for wanting it that badly. And that completely disarmed me, that allowed me to say, okay, I'll talk to you. Okay. And we started communication and coming back together. But it was him who made this happen. It was his will,
Huh.
and I'm grateful.
That's interesting. So can you imagine your life if if you both had not have chosen to go to, that energy reading and such, where you would be now?
We just talked about it the other day, and he said that was never a possibility with me.
Oh,
And
so
I'm
that's
like,
sweet.
well, sorry, but and I believe that, well, if that had happened, he would be a miserable old man, just a miserable old man, So, but the happiness that we have, it's just, I mean, it bursts down all these walls that, like that rage and all these that kept me on walking on eggshells. I just didn't want it anymore. I just
Hmm.
didn't want it anymore. And and our life, this is quite a number of years that it's a different person. It's a transformed person. And you know what? It's not just him. I've transformed as well, and it's just been a gift. And I want people to know that it can happen. People say, "Oh, you can't change it." Well, first of all, I did not. Okay, I'm not taking credit for these 3 wild coincidences that produced the miracle, but I was open somehow. And that's all you need, is just your mind to be just a crack open, to let some movement, just a crack, just a little, okay, like curiosity or whatever you want to call it. Because I can't believe I had made a decision like that and for these 3 big things to happen. So I listened to what the universe wanted.
Now, I have an example, kind of. I believe that what is meant for you will always be. Now, again, it's the action part, because here's a simple example in my own life that helps people um, kind of relate in a way. So, 4 years ago, I found this purse at an antique store that I just absolutely loved. Um, and it, I mean, this is just something simple, and but it was purple, and it had these rhinestones. It was like a 19, I guess, 30s, 40s era, handbag type thing. I absolutely loved it. And something kind of tragic happened, that I lost all of my belongings, and had to, in that house there, including that purse that I absolutely loved. Okay, 4 years later, this just happened a couple weeks ago, actually. Um, I had bought an antique from a lady, and that day I was supposed to go pick it up. It was through Marketplace or whatever. I was supposed to go pick it up, but I was in a hurry, walked out the door. Of course, I do this a lot, and locked myself out of the house. So I had my phone so I could tell her I'm not going to be able to make it because I'm locked out of my house. I have to wait until my son gets home. I don't have my keys, so I can't drive. She's like, "Oh, it's fine. I'll bring this antique to you." She comes to me, and while she brings me this wooden antique thing that I had purchased from her, and she's like, "Oh, here, do you want this purse? I have no use for it. I've tried to sell it, everything, but you can just have it." And I was like, "That's the exact same purse that I lost
What?
4 years ago." I mean, and this is a very unique. I've never seen another one like it, except it's in a different color, and it was orange. Same purse, different color,
Wow.
4 years later. And it's not like I didn't buy that from her. I didn't even know she had that. And complete stranger. So something as simple, you know, um,
But what are the odds that she would
right.
give it to you?
And that might not have happened had I driven to her,
Yeah.
had I not locked myself out of the house and all. So it's just a random little thing, but that's the universe saying, um, this is something that you really liked, even though I'm not a materialistic person. So, but it was, back then it was, and I could probably even find a picture I took of it and posted probably somewhere on Facebook the day I got it 4 years ago, and to show the difference,
It was
now.
your
But
birthday present.
yeah, it might have been. It was probably around the same time. Yeah. So that was one thing. But also, another thing, I wanted to be an artist when I was 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, and it was 20 years to the day, um, a year ago, that I opened my own art studio, and the opportunity just happened to come around. So things like that. Like, even if you pass up something at the time, it's still years later, whenever, this is even the same with like partners and everything else. It always comes back around. Whether you
Mm.
take action or not is a different story.
Well, that's it. That's
Mhm.
it. One also, these communications happen through different, like the woman who you bought the antique thing with. I mean, it can be people that give you the message, or books, or things, or it's but you have to hone your awareness to
Mhm.
recognize what's happening. I'm going to relate one story that I just, and where it took me. So about 20 some years ago, I was in Center City. I worked in Center City, Philadelphia, and I took my lunch to Rittenhouse Square and was looking for a bench. And I see 3 benches, but one had a book on it. So I picked the bench with the book. And I look at the book, and the title of the book is Who Told You You Were Born Naked? No, Who Told You You Were Naked? I thought, that's so weird. And it was written by a Trappist monk that was also a student of A Course in Miracles. So I immediately started reading this book. It was the most beautiful writing about forgiveness. I mean, it was just absolutely beautiful. And as I'm reading it, my first language is Greek. So I realized that in the Greek version of the Lord's Prayer, in English it's, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. The word forgiveness is not in the Greek, and the Greek was the first writing when it was written down the first time in the Bible, in the classical Bible. It was in Greek, although when Jesus said it, it was in Aramaic. So I went line by line, the Lord's Prayer, and I thought, oh my God, if you don't know this in Greek, you're gypped, because the beauty of it in Greek, there's nuances that are completely lost in translation. So I have retranslated, because of that little book that I found on the bench, I've retranslated the Lord's Prayer, which I've included in my Please chapter in my book. But the first line, and I had the blessing of a world famous theologian and Greek scholar. And I thought, what's he going to think about the first line? And the first line is, our Creator who resides in sound, light, and vibration. And he goes, absolutely true. He goes, because in Greek, it's heaven is plural. So he says all realms, sound, light, and vibration, all realms. So I have the blessing, and it is really worth, looking at this prayer. And I believe that anyone can say the prayer. You can be Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, whatever. It's about divine intelligence, And I have a problem with the patriarchy of the church, and like he and our Father. So that thereby it's our Creator. But it's those things that was a little life-altering thing that happened on that park bench. So, but I didn't just leave it. I mean, there was no way I was not going to read this book. So it was a direct gift, So and I wonder if, when you start, like when we're talking with each other, and then some people right now might be thinking, oh, if I hadn't gone on that trip, I would not have met this person. If I would not have gotten this job, and you start looking back, and that is another way to build your faith. It's because, oh, wait a minute, that happened to me and I never thought about it.
Yes. And I even now, when I started being more present and trying to be mindful of being present and in the moment and focusing, especially with ADD and ADHD and such, it was very imperative that I do that, because otherwise I do things like lock myself out, or it could be dangerous, if you're driving and start doing these things. But I started paying attention to, I started doing things like looking up different words, different phrases that came across, my everyday, um, seeing what they meant in other languages, or seeing what their origin, where it came from, or even if it was an animal that crossed my path that wasn't typical, if there's like a turtle that went across, and I would look up the spiritual meaning, or if a specific flower, that was out of the ordinary, came across my path. And every single time when I would look that up, it was something specific, a message that 100% pertained to my life at the time.
What about numbers? What about numbers? Do you, I mean, do you is there a number that has a specific meaning for you? Because for me, there's numbers.
Every number, yes, every number has specific,
Oh,
and the entire universe interacts with me. I know there's quite a few people this happens to, and it can happen to everyone. It's nothing that's special with me. It's just that I really started paying attention, and that's when license plates and billboards and um, everything. I'd go in a library and walk straight to a book that had a message, or the entire shelf for that matter, that I could point out that was something directly related to my life at the time, or something I needed to know. And just recently, even with my cat, for instance, my daughter um, adopted a kitten from that was found out in a field by my parents' house, and this specific kitten had saved their cat's life. It came and found a human, to notify them that their cat was laying in a storm gutter, injured. When it was very young, it left its mother to go notify a person to come save their cat, and so she wanted to bring it home, and I was like, no, we already have pets, we just adopted another one, we don't, but I will make sure I'll take it to the Humane Society so it has a good home. And on the way home, it was crawling under, my vehicle, and this was right around Christmas. And when I get out of the car, she has a sticker, I don't even know where this sticker came from, stuck to her stomach that says, please don't re-gift me. And I'm like,
oh,
my gosh. Well,
I-
thank you, Spirit. you know, but this kitten ended up being one of the most profound gifts, I guess, to our entire family. She perked up my older dog, who was kind of getting depressed, and just has been the most meaningful um, addition to our lives. And so I looked up. We named my daughter, named her Hazel, and I looked up Hazel, like just now, whatever triggered me, that you when you were talking about that, to look at that up. And in Celtic, all the way back, Celtic, Greek, all of the older mythology and traditions, it talks about a hazel tree. They were said to line the borders between the human world and the realm of the gods. They bore branches laden heavy with fruit, and um, their nuts would often fall into a nearby stream where they would be consumed by the salmon. And they would gain all the knowledge of the world and were known as the salmon of wisdom. Well, I had ordered some groceries from the store the other day, online, you go pick them up. They accidentally gave me an entire case of salmon. I didn't order. I was like,
I thought you were going to say hazelnuts, but okay,
no, but
I'll
yeah,
take the
but
salmon.
but that's what. See, I never knew what the salmon was for. The last 2 weeks or whatever. I was like, why would I get an entire case of canned salmon? Like, where would that? Did my cat order that? I mean, maybe.
Oh God, that's
But
amazing. I can't get
um,
over the sticker. I'm sorry, I'm still back at the
yes,
sticker.
yes.
Oh,
But the salmon, it says they were bright, glistening. Their color, the orange color, came from the spots appeared on the sides of the salmon to show that they had been blessed by the magical hazel trees. And those who ate the hazelnuts were said to gain prophetic abilities and live a life full of wisdom, which is interesting because you're wearing that color. And Hazel, the cat, she has never once come on my show. So there you go.
oh, that's amazing. I know. See, and now there are times when I go. Now, am I giving this meaning, or is it giving me meaning? And it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So
Right.
that's remarkable. Like, no, you're not giving me away. Oh, that is so you see, when would you say you started listening?
Um, It was after, it would have been 4 years ago when I had another heart attack. And a lot of profound things happened that year. I was baptized, but I also separated from organized religion at that time. Um, and things started happening in my life that nobody believed. But then it just it got to a point where it wasn't about trying to make other people believe in what was happening to me or in my life, because I knew 100% what was happening, and that's all that mattered,
So
so.
do you feel protected?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be alive today if I wasn't protected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but do you feel protected, I guess? Have you
Oh,
ever
yes.
had?
Well, I had in 2016, I'm not accident prone, but 2016, again, within 2 months, I had 2 freak accidents. I mean, so, and I write about that in the second book, because, well, the first one was a car accident that the guy was coming at 65 miles an hour across uh, the center lines and is going right for a head-on collision. And I just, turned the wheel because I'm going to the passenger, towards the. I was on the inside lane, so if I get hit, at least I'm over here. And anyway, it was. I mean, he got thrown out of the car, and they took him to the hospital. He's okay, but nothing physically happened to me. But as he hit me, the car spun, and I'm facing the opposite direction. And as it's spinning, I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm being protected. I felt this embrace, like a, not a, I mean, it was like warmth. It wasn't like physical. It was, if somebody was to embrace you, it's the warmth that they would admit, this warmth. And physically, nothing happened to me. A little shard from the shattered window, because I went like this in my ear, and this little pinprint of blood, and it was just this little tiny shard. That was it. The airbags were deployed.
Wow.
Nothing happened. I couldn't drive for 2 months. So, I was diagnosed with PTSD, and I'm still a terrible passenger. But okay, in the second one, I was in Oregon writing at my brother's beach cabin, and I went and had a walk on the beach, and I was just sitting watching the waves, and I'm way back, and then there was rocks in back of me, and then the highway, and there's this little inlet, and between me and the inlet is a driftwood tree stump and a sneaker wave. There was a flash flood down that inlet, and this sneaker wave, I mean, it was this water came just flooding, and I grabbed the tree stump, and I was able to keep my head above water, and all of a sudden I feel the tree stump let go, and I went, that the most incredible part in both of these was how calm I was. I remember thinking, oh, well, this is it. Just like that. Well, this is it. And then just as I said that, the water receded, the tree stump came down, and it was, and again, it was, I had a parka on, but I didn't feel cold. I went home, took off my clothes and put them in the washer, and my entire body was black and blue because that came with logs that were hitting me that I wasn't aware of. And my husband said, go take a picture of that tree stump. And the next morning I went and bought like one of those phones that you can buy. And I went back to because my phone was gone, to take a picture, and the tree stump was gone. So by the grace of God, that tree stump was there for me to save me. And I wasn't having any thoughts about writing it. And a friend said, "You are going to write about those 2 accidents, aren't you?" And I said, "No, I mean, I didn't die." She goes, "That's why," she said, "because that was a message. Those were the creepiest accidents I've ever heard." And I remember thinking, it was the universe saying, "This is not your time. You have to fulfill your purpose." And it was, right in the middle of my writing. And those things are like little alarm clocks, aligning you, pushing you, helping you. Again, the universe wants our success. And it seems like, you've had a whole life of that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You start thinking back, um, at least I did anyways, I'm like, wow, nothing, crazy or spectacular or miraculous has ever happened. No, that's not true. It's every one of us has had crazy, miraculous things happen every day in our lives. Um, we we just don't always view them as that, Um, and so it's interesting about the theme of people that write kind of memoirs about their life story and such, because one of the times that of the near death experiences that I had, I dreamt, or wherever I went during this void time, while I flatlined. Um, I had a vision. I was in a library, but all the books were people's lives. Um, everyone I had ever known, everyone who had ever existed, which I'm assuming is the Akashic record, kind of a library of the Akashic record of everybody on the planet, for that matter, in the universe. And because it had all these famous people, all the Einstein and things like that. So anyone who had ever existed in in my reality now. And they always said it's not your time because you haven't written your book yet. And at the time, I thought that meant literally writing a book. But I didn't realize that book was me actually living my life and recognizing living my life. Life's not just meant to go through the motions and survive, because I'd already done that. I had survived all these different things, but I wasn't actually living. And that was the book. That's all of our books. And so you hear people, different mystics and yogis and everything, and they talk about that record. And when I started, viewing other people's lives and past lives and everything else as a novel, I'm like, that's what we came here to live our lives. Instead of worrying about everything, just let go, and that's part of the trust in the process in the universe, because we weren't meant to suffer all the time. And I mean, yes, bad things happen, but I'm saying suffer in a sense that consumes your entire life.
See, I believe that these things happen. I believe that we're here on Earth, that Earth is sort of like this laboratory, and we are meant to grow and keep growing to a different level and becoming closer and closer to the divine. And so when you have something negative happens, it's like you had said earlier, what is your perspective? I had, this was about 5 or 6 years ago, I became aware that I had 7 friends who had lost an adult child. And I thought, wow, and these are very interesting people. And so what I did is I invited them to my house, and I asked them to bring a photograph of their child and anything that they felt sort of represented their essence. And it was 6 women and a man. And I had them go around the room. I mean, they not all of them knew each other, but I knew them all. Okay, so, and the women, the man went last, and each woman in one way or another expressed that this was, yes, it was the most horrific thing that happened, but as a result, there was a transformation. There was this, they described going to a different level. One talked about that she has a guru that talked about detachment, that you don't own your child, you're the vehicle, but you don't own. And there was this peaceful look on all 6 women. I was like, oh my God, this is just amazing, one after the other. We get to the man, and he's in a rage. He hadn't let go. Anger just exuded. And I thought, okay, he hasn't gone there yet. But what these women said to me was, well, this is what I needed to transform. So yes, it can be looked at as, somebody could never recover from that. But all 6 of my friends did. And it was just beautiful to see.
I think it's when you start, and I went through this entire uh, kind of along the same lines with religion, different religions and everything. As far as my confusion, people always say, why would, if there's a God or a higher power, why would that power allow these things to happen? Why would? But what I realized, as far as a consciousness, as you say, beyond death, is we're the only ones that attach that. Once people die, they release that. Um, what's the word? Corporeal. Like, there's no pain, there's no human suffering, that doesn't exist in the spirit world. That only exists in our illusion of things. So once you start seeing things in that manner, and realizing that, even if um tragedies happen, that is that person, that spirit's path in this life. That was their purpose. Maybe they were the catalyst for change in your life or somebody else's life, or due to their ascension. And then you realize that sometimes you see that person in someone else almost immediately. you know um I met a random woman at a dog park one time, and she was in her 90s, and she said, she just said, will you walk with me and watch the sunrise? I said, of course. And she said, I moved, my husband and I started this journey to we planned on moving right before the shutdown, and everything shut down. They started their move, and he passed away right at that time. She had no family. She still continued moving, didn't know anyone there. And um, she had had the most profound experiences in her own life, because from the time she was a little girl, she told her dad, she's like, man, you've come such a long ways. Well, she was his mom like in a past life, and the things that she could, but see, she was reincarnated as his daughter,
Mm-hmm.
which is because she could recall from the time she was little and tell him things about his life, that no one else would have known.
Mm.
And it's just stories like that randomly happen, and you're like, this is an amazing world full of things like that are happening all around us all the time.
Well, just the fact that you connected with this woman.
Oh, yes. I like I said, it's one of those things where you have to. I used to be the type that was very shy and wouldn't open up, wouldn't talk to people. But it's always random strangers, you know, that tell you something that you might need to. It could be. I've had homeless people tell me
Oh,
one sentence, that possibly changed my entire direction in life numerous times.
yes. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's crazy when and you stop, and maybe it doesn't resonate at that time. Maybe
Yeah,
you don't think of it that way, but then when that time comes, you remember it and you're like, that's why that happened.
exactly. Yeah.
And that's where everything means something.
Hmm. So, if we listen, it's, and you didn't ask for that homeless person. You didn't ask for the book. You didn't ask, but the desire, the willingness, the problem, you want a problem solved. You want, and then these things just come to you.
Hmm.
In fact, in the book, in the thank you chapter, I relate 2 events that took place years apart that deal with, each one deals with a homeless person, a few days before Christmas, and a $20 bill. Now, one is enough, but to have these 2 experiences with these 3 elements that was transforming, each one was transforming, and and thanking God for, well, I consider them angels, actually,
Yeah,
uh, so
that was my next question.
yes, and it just happens all the time. And in fact, now I did not write about this because I didn't want to like go, I was like push the, you know, sort of, push things over the edge. But I have this thing with 444. So 444 to me is a sign, and it's for years and years and years. And one of those homeless people, um, that happened, it was very close to 30th Street Station here in Philadelphia, and it was just remarkable. So it was just it was life change. This was an angel. Okay, that's all I can tell you. She was an angel. Well, years later, this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I'm crossing the street and I'm thinking about, because I was there. Okay, so I'm crossing the street towards where I left this woman, this homeless, gritty, dirty woman. And I remember thinking, God, that was just the most angelic experience. And then as I'm crossing the street, I thought, well, if that if that person was an angel, the way I believe, then that is holy ground. I said to myself, just this must be holy ground. And I approach the spot where I left her, and in blue paint was 444. It was,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was, uh, I guess the water people wanted to, mark something there, but it was at the spot. But that wasn't it. It was that in my head, I was thinking that, like, this is hallowed ground. If that was an angel. So the 444 said, yes, it was confirmation. Yes, you're right. I mean, so I have a picture of it, but I thought we're not going to go into numbers in this book because just playing it safe.
I think, well, and people assign, numbers to everything, but, and here's the thing, when you get into different languages, religions, everything has duality and an equal and opposite reaction and all of that. Because if you look at, well, for instance, 666, you know, once I was seeing that all over the place. I used to be a dealer at a casino, and I used to see that all the time, and I was like, "Oh man, that's terrible. Like that means the devil and all this." And actually, eh, originally 666 in numerology is the number of man, of human. But I started having players from other countries, start talking to them about superstitions and numbers and such. And in Asian countries, for instance, 666 is considered incredibly lucky. And so it's that entire, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, there's that completely opposite meaning, um, just from a different perspective, as far as numbers go. So, but you're right, that's like a whole nother chapter, and people
Mhm.
get into like the Tesla code and all of that. But um you could, well, there's been scientists, everybody, since the beginning of
Well,
time
it's
studying numbers.
mathematics. I mean, look at
Hmm.
mathematics. I mean, they're I read somebody was trying to prove consciousness through mathematics. Well, mathematics is numbers.
Hmm.
So it's all interrelated. Everything is interrelated. Everything is interrelated.
Absolutely. And I don't know if this happens to you, but I'll go down these rabbit holes of, my cat went crazy just now. But I'll go down these rabbit holes of connecting these things and just be mind blown all over again. And I went from the numbers to, as an artist, and seeing like sacred geometry. And when you start looking at things that way, that I had never noticed before, like certain flowers, each have a different number of petals, and they're, specifically, um, they're different geometric shapes and things like that. And you're like, wow, that has 4 petals, that has 5, that has, and looking at like butterflies and their symmetry and things like that. And it's absolutely amazing that you're like, well, I've always known that. I've always of course everybody can see that, but it means so much more when you think of things in that manner. I think.
Mm, yeah, and then there's insects that look like flowers,
Hmm.
and flowers that look like. I mean, it's you see it, the patterns in nature like that,
Hmm.
and then the golden ratio, and how you know how nature designs, and then how you have people that can look at nature, and like Buckminster Fuller, who was my idol. And that's another thing. That's a chapter in the book. I mean, he was my idol, and a series of events happened where I ended up working. He asked me to work with him. That's how I got from Portland to Philadelphia. And he invented the geodesic dome. And that's all
Wow.
based on uh, geometry, like geometric shapes. The tetrahedron is the basis. And that was quite an experience. I mean, a real futurist. He's like the Leonardo da Vinci of our times, but that kind of architecture where it's taken from geometry, you know.
Hmm. I never, it wasn't until I got very, I became a photographer that I started noticing in architecture, that I started noticing all of the geometry in architecture. Because it's one thing to look at buildings and stuff when just as a tourist or a passerby or whatever, but if you've never worked in any type of engineering or architecture, but when you see pictures and you start to analyze, wow, all the different, well, it's geometry, you're right, but we don't notice those things most of the time just with our eyes, I guess. um or at least not upon first glance. Anyways, it's something, unless you've built it, that at least for me, I have to experience multiple times to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Which I guess is with anything in life. My daughter was just asking me the other day. We've gone back to, there's this specific botanic garden in our city that we frequently visit, and she's 8, and she's like, I've already, well, before we go, she always tells me, she's like, I don't want to go there again. It's boring. I've already been. I'm like, I don't know. You might see something you missed last time. And every time she sees something different. And I said, it's like seasons. You can't, things change every single day, everywhere. People change every day. So you can't fully experience, just because you've seen it once does not mean that it's not going to be different tomorrow. So
yeah, that's life. That's the way you should see life in a nutshell.
yes, even like when I read books over again that I maybe read when 10, 15 years ago, and I'm like, oh, I've already read that, I don't, and then all of a sudden it'll like fall open to a specific
Yes.
page, and I'm like, okay. And you appreciate it in a different, almost from different eyes, basically, in my point of view, like from a completely different perspective, because you're not the
Yeah.
same person as you were 10 years ago.
That's for sure. And it I would feel sorry for somebody that was the same person.
Oh, gosh, absolutely. I just had I had a guest a few weeks ago. Oh, Brad Kelly. He's an amazing author. But we were discussing that too. I said, the statistics on people who never pick up another book to read for pleasure after college, which means in their 20s, right? Even with like PhDs, the average age for people, I mean, nowadays it's different because adults do go back to school later in life, but most people do not pick up another book for pleasure ever again for the rest of their lives. I mean, they'll read, the newspaper or like something for their job or whatever, but they don't read again ever. And that's tragic to me. I'm like, how could you? That's but but then I started relating that to people as in the Akashic record. And so it's interesting that you said, like your husband, you gave another chance after completely closing that book, thinking you're done with it, and so when I start thinking of people that way, I'm like, maybe I should go back and read some of those books of those people that were in my life that I just, completely cast out years ago for whatever reason. And it's profound. The people that you think you would never get along with, or that previously, or when you're younger, for whatever reason, first impression or whatever, turn out to be, or like even the homeless people. But when you actually go back and give them a chance and read their book, it changes everything. I don't know. There's like something keeps flashing behind you. I'm serious.
Uh-oh.
I'm telling you. There is a man trying to bring a message through.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what
Um,
happens.
Now, before we go, I can't believe it's been 2 hours already. Um, I guess if I know when we briefly talked, be it via email, I said I don't really believe in coincidences because meaning I believe everything happens for a reason. What is I guess, what would you want people to take away from your book? There's one thing.
That exactly, that coincidences is one way that divine intelligence, the universe, communicates with us. That's why I called it the divine language of coincidence. And it's for us to recognize and take action. And what I want, if there's one thing that I want people to at least have a little open mind towards, that these amazing things that have happened to me, that have brought me such a rich life, that it can happen to anyone. It's not that I'm lucky. It's not. I'm fortunate because at a very young age, at 19, something happened that I just thought, how can these two issues that I thought were unsolvable get solved so easily? And so so from a young age, I was able to pay attention, and then these things happened over and over. And I don't think it's too late for anyone to start right now. Maybe take an inventory about what happened. How did you meet that person? How did you buy that house? How did that money come to you? What did you do? What were your actions to bring about these gifts, miracles, whatever you want to call them? So that's my message. That's my message. And then this way, faith develops, and you feel a kinship. I don't know how to describe it, but a kinship with this divine provider.
I think, well, I'm excited to read your book. I'm excited actually for the next one as well. That you have coming out for Consciousness Beyond Death as well. And where can people find you again? What is your website, and then as far as Amazon,
Okay, well, my website is my name, sophiademas.com. And I also have a page that's my influencers, which are 8 people that I've had personal contact with that I consider to be mentors. And if anyone out there is interested in mysticism, you must read the blurb on Abbess Ameliani. You can't miss her. She's a nun that runs a monastery in Maryland. And it's a firsthand account of bilocation that it is just, it will just knock your socks off. So, and then you could just type it if anyone wants the book. I mean, you can actually get the book from my website. It goes directly to Amazon. It's also in bookstores. And so this is a portrait of learning, a life of learning. And the next book is hopeful. I think it's very hopeful because, again, you know, and I'm glad that I have these other 3 stories of 3 other people. And I really believe that if people read the book, it'll be like, oh, wait a minute, this happened. This happened. And it makes you more open to, the gifts that the universe wants to give you because the universe wants you to succeed. That's the message.
And I think, especially during, the last few years in this world,
Yes.
that's been very trying. It's so important and such a huge inspiration for people like you to put, uh, messages and real life examples
Yes.
that we can relate to out there, because I know for myself you're a huge inspiration. I'm probably going, it'll probably take me a long time, but I'm more inspired to write my own book, because
Yes.
of you. So
Well, thank you. It's been a real pleasure, but I think that what you're doing with this show, you know, um, getting people's stories out there to inspire other people, to do that book, write that book, or take that action, but to have this platform to have an opportunity to tell these stories, I think is kind of God's work that you're doing.
oh, thank you. I always thought, I never pictured myself um being able to, I've always listed on an individual level to, been fascinated with people's stories and in my own life. But I always thought, if you're going to be an influencer, if you're going to have the ability to reach millions of people, then you should do it in a positive manner, And so I love stories of transformation, and for my own, it- because they give me hope, on a personal level. And I love when other people when it has that same effect on others as well, because as I said, I think everybody has a voice that should be heard. So
I just want to let you know that don't force it. I can see this book is gurgling up, and it's gurgling up, and so just let it emerge, uh, and then you'll see that you will have external help. You will get external help that will guide you in the right direction. And don't forget to ask for signs, like, just give me a sign. That's all you have to do. That's all. And then when you get the sign, thank you. That's it.
yes, I think that's one of the big things I've learned is gratitude. Gratitude is, um, and as one of the big things that you mentioned is forgiveness, mostly in yourself. You know, um, I think those have been, two of the biggest, lessons, I guess, in a positive manner that I've learned through all of this and
It's
through
medicinal.
networking.
Both those things are medicinal.
Yes, very much so. Um, and it's interesting that every single person I interview, one way or another, has done some sort of, including myself, has done some sort of project, in the prison system, which is interesting. I just realized that. So, um, but Sophia, it's been such a pleasure. I hope to be able to speak with you again in the future. As we progress. And I'll post your links. If anyone wants to reach out to you, I'll have that. Again, it's on my Facebook group page, as well as, it will obviously be on the repost of this. So It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And to all of our listeners, it's always thank you for listening to us, and thank you for supporting the missing piece. Next week we have dark humor comedian Brad Goss, so that's something to look forward to. Tune in on Monday at 8 p.m. Central. And for now, everyone be safe and good night. And
Good
Sophia,
night.
good night to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll have to see if